Scrimmage number 2 in the books in South Carolina as we count down the days till kickoff. We are Connor Shaw days away, 14 until the first game of the year. But before we get into all that, we got to talk about what happened on the practice field on Saturday. A lot of good things. Plus, we get some insights into Darius Gray and where he is going to be committing this Friday. Locked on Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Hope everyone's having a fantastic weekend. Appreciate you guys being here. I'm in a new shirt. I got a haircut today, but I still wear a hat because I feel like I look like Kim Jong-un, and I don't love it. Anyway, regardless, thank you for joining us. Also, thank you for making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Listen, games are right around the corner. Download the Game Time app now. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Get in the game. Let's get right to it. Big day, big weekend. Not a ton of crazy stuff to report, but the second scrimmage of the fall camp happened on Saturday, and got a little bit of intel, got a little bit of just what people were talking about, and a couple of guys that have stood out so far. Now, anybody that has paid attention through most of fall camp, one of the names that came up last week, Jaden Sellers, I thought that was kind of interesting. Young freshman receiver. Out of all the freshman receivers, not the one we really talk a lot about, but it makes sense that guy would have a lot of, what's the best way to put it? A lot of chemistry with the quarterback, considering that they have the same last name. And I'm pretty sure this could be crazy. I think this is a fact. They could be related. That's a joke. But going into this week's scrimmage, you are getting closer and closer to game time. What you're looking for, I feel like, is this. You want to make sure that you're having more of these units gel. Offensive line, defensive line, things like that, and players you want to see gel. Now, one of the things that popped up to me going through all this is some of the names that you've been waiting for to hear, especially at certain positions that are going to be very, very key. One of the first ones that popped up, and I want to open with this one because it's a good kid, the kid we met at Media Days this year, Nick Barrett. This feels more and more like a position that is going to be led through example. A defense is going to be led by example, but a guy that's going to go out on the field and he's not going to be the quarterback of the defense, considering he plays defensive line, but it feels like he might be the leader of the defense. You know what I mean? Like, whether it's just by example or not, the way he's performed, especially early on. And then also, I think, like, as dumb as this may sound, I don't think it is, but like maybe to others, like him being mentioned as the guy or being named the guy that went to Media Days, I think that alone maybe speaks volumes about where he's at from a leadership standpoint, especially with this team. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Another name that came up was JT Gear. And I tell you what, we talked so much about Brian Thomas Jr. and what he did a year ago. Maybe we don't talk enough about it, but you're going to need rotational guys that are going to be able to come in and play multiple snaps and big downs for you at that position. And again, that's a physical position of considering what you're going up against in these giant trees and massive specimen that you're going up against at left tackle and right tackle and trying to get to the quarterback. Listen, we talk about Kennard all the time. We talk about Stewart all the time and the production they had from a season ago. It's easy to forget that a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. went into last season and finished the year with 4.5 sacks. He had 8.5 tackles for loss. And then you talk about the 23 total, 6.5 tackles for loss. But the 4.5 sacks, again, a forced fumble, being able to create turnovers and havoc from that position seemed to be a big staple. And you saw it with Stewart last year. But JT Gear, a guy that was able to get in and be in the healthiest he's been since he's been in Columbia, South Carolina, it feels like this is another name that's like you wonder who's going to replace these guys. And they keep despite all the names on the roster, despite all of like the blue chips you've had and the highest amount you've had, I think it's 39% or 39 total players that are blue chip players from a season ago. That's up I think a total of 30% from the year before because it was 30 the year before. Anyway, just a big, big deal that you've been able to have so much talent year over year still be on the roster. And now you get a chance to go see them develop and get a chance to see them be the guy or get more snaps and rotation, all that kind of stuff in a Clayton White defense. And I think this is a guy that is pining probably for the number 3 position. It feels like Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be the other dude outside on the other edge across from Dylan Stewart, right? And that's fine. But I think that the idea that you won't have any production, it might just look something similar to what we saw at the interior defensive line from production standpoint last year, where it's like, yeah, you might not have a guy that goes out and gets double-digit sacks across from Stewart. Maybe Stewart's that guy. It should be. From everything that we've heard, and this is the next point we're going to get into, the reviews from him, and I feel like you got to say it with a caveat, not because of what his talent is, but like the fact that what his talent is versus who he's going up against in practice. I don't know if he is getting – that's not an iron sharpens iron thing necessarily right now from a rep-on-rep standpoint. And I hate to say that because I think that Josiah Thompson is going to be a really good player and is going to be a really good player. But right now, no, he's not there. He's not on Dylan Stewart's level. Really, nobody on this roster defensively is because of how elite he is as a player. This is a potential number 1 overall pick in next year's draft. So that goes back to what we're talking about with Gear and also with Brian Thomas Jr., which is if that dude is the guy that we think he's going to be, then whoever's on the other side is going to eat. Like that person that's lining up on the other side of them is going to eat. Because if Stewart is in here and you're talking about a guy that might weigh 270 pounds this year, I don't know what his weight is this year. I don't know if it's that high. I know he came in at like, what was it? He put on like 15, 20 pounds of muscle last season. And I think he was right around, he either jumped from 240 to 255 or 255 to 270. Somebody correct me in the comments. But I know he put on, because we had that picture, we did a whole show on it, of the jump he made physically and the transformation he made in the summer. And you've seen that a bunch. But if he is as advertised, bigger, faster, stronger, which by all means, you wouldn't expect him to drop off any or get any slower and continue to grow into his body and his potential at that size and at that speed, everything we've heard is this guy is going to be a effing problem. Like this guy is going to be an absolute problem. And I firmly believe that's where we stand with Dylan Stewart. Now, if that's the case, the people he's going up against on the other side, and again, I tell you what, it might not be against Caden Proctor in Alabama, who's like a high projected draft pick, but or even at Clemson, some of those guys are late first round, early second round picks in the projected draft for this upcoming year. But some of those other guys, you're breaking in, or the kid at A&M, who's also, I think, he's the right tackle, who's a preseason All-American. But LSU breaking in a new offensive lineman. I mean, like, I don't know who Kentucky's dude is. I'm sure he's going to have some problems. He had some problems last year with him. Mizzou has Caden Green, but he's still playing guard. They lost a first rounder at left tackle as well. You're breaking in a lot of new faces and new names at that position that have to go up against him. I bring that up because of the fact that he's going to require so much attention. Whoever's on the other side, JT Gear, Brian Thomas Jr., man, go have a day, young man. You know what I mean? Because here's the other part too. JT Gear is a guy that came out of Anderson, redshirt senior. So he's a grown man, former 3-star, but 6'6", 245, can get after the quarterback. He is a redshirt senior. I personally love that. Because that just tells me, man, the guy's been there for a minute, and now we're replacing some of the people we lost with grown ass men that are going to be in, that are rotating into this defense that are going up against some younger players, some players that aren't as developed, and guys that at least get the position and have been physically developed long enough to where you are a grown man on the field. JT Gear is that, right? Brian Thomas Jr., I think both those guys being healthy, both those guys getting more opportunities and more reps, and again, doing it against, like, on the other side of whoever is paying all the attention that they're going to be paying to Dylan Stewart, that's a huge benefit. All right, so that's the very beginning part of it. When we come back, we're going to talk about some guys on the offensive side of the ball that Got rave reviews. We got some people cutting the grass outside here. It's like 7 o'clock. I don't know why we're doing this. But we got some people that got some rave reviews offensively as well. And then at the end of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about the 5-star offensive lineman, Darius Gray. It is Darius Gray week. He is committing on Friday night. I talked with someone that I trust today from LSU that had some interesting things to say the very least. And when we come back, we will talk about that and more. Before we do, want to give a quick shout out to another one of our sponsors for today's show, and it's our friends at Drip Drop. And I tell you what, if you're trying to stay at the top of your routine, especially with how hot it is outside, especially with just the dog days of summer coming to an end, but it's still being a bazillion degrees outside. And I know Columbia, South Carolina is one of the hottest places on earth. So if you are like me, whether it's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. I tell you what, Drip Drop is doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses perfect balance of sodium, electrolytes, and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. I'll tell you what, I'll go one further here. One thing they don't tell you about sports drinks, Gatorade especially, okay? How about the fact that Gatorade is scientifically proven to be 11 times worse for your teeth enamel than something like soda even, but especially something like Drip Drop. I tell you what, my go-to flavor, I love them all. But I tell you what, they are game changers for sure. And again, whether it's just for an extra long, busy day, or if it's for a day you're outside in the heat doing yard work, working out, or anything in between, maybe both if you're just a go-getter. I'm telling you, this stuff is a must-have at your disposal. And right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, all capital letters. That's dripdrop.com. Promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Dripdrop.com. All right, so we'll be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks right after this. All right, we're back in it. Let's talk about a couple of the players in the offensive line. And one of the names that came up that I really was excited to hear about. And I'll tell you what, Mike Yuba is a guy that has been bringing all this stuff up. And I love Mike to death, man. Mike's like one of the nicest people in the world. Gave me a ton of recs to go to in Boston while I was up there. Guys from the Northeast that just bleeds garnet and black. Love him to death. But I tell you what, he brought this up in a recent article, and he was talking about Tree Babalade. One, I love the name. Not even Tree Babalade. I just love that name. I think I'm saying it correctly. I don't know why I'm giving myself so much confidence on assuming that, but Tree Babalade's a guy that is a massive lineman, 6'5", 340. I think he's been way bigger than that at times, from a 4-star recruit. Dude that is from the Maryland area, went to DeMatha, which is a massive high school that has produced a lot of good players. And very few teams have recruited, especially in the SEC, have recruited that region as well as South Carolina. Honestly, I don't think anyone has as well as South Carolina. Bama used to do it a lot. I think the Quandro brothers were from there. Nicky Fitzpatrick might have been from Jersey. But you had a couple of guys that went there. I think the Stephon Diggs' brother, Trevon. You had a couple of guys from there, but no one in the last 5 years has recruited that area as well as South Carolina. He got some snaps apparently at right tackle. And that's interesting to me because, listen, Casey Henry's a dude that started every single game for you last year there. Okay, he played in 13 games last season. He's played has 14 starts over the last 2 years in that spot at right tackle. But he's been not great. And I think when you look at trying to anchor down the line, I bring this up all the time. This is not even a shot at Casey Henry. He's a guy that has a lot of experience, and that's something Tree doesn't really have. And again, by the way, he's a redshirt junior. Casey Henry's a redshirt junior, 6'6", 300. He almost is on the skinnier side, right? At 6'6", 300, but it's not a small person. That is not a small person. I thought that Tree would be a guy that would put inside, especially with the open spots they've had on the interior offensive line. Talk about this number a lot. 93.5% of your snaps from last season gone from guard, center to guard. But also, listen, Casey Henry is a guy that's from the state of Georgia. He played at Walton High School, one of the best places or best high schools in the state. And like I said, he's got a full year where it felt like he was a staple and a solid foundation at that right tackle position a year ago, with how much he played. But here's the deal. I think also, Babalade's a guy that came in and had 9 starts as a true freshman, 2023, did not play as much. He only played in 4 games last year just to preserve a redshirt year. So he's got 3 years eligibility left. But when I look at him and trying to figure out what you want to do here, maybe this falls in line with what a lot of offensive line coaches have done for years. And that is this. It's not always about your best 5 offensive linemen. It is the right 5 offensive linemen. And that's why you see time and time again, guys that on paper, oh, yeah, that guy's been a right tackle for us. What happens if we shift him to right guard? What happens if we shift this guy? What if we kick this guy out from left guard to left tackle? Is he more at home there? What if we move over this guy to center, or move the center over here? It's not just the most talented 5. It's the right 5 with the right fit that are going to mesh the best across the offensive line. And I tell you what, as somebody just like you that's watched this offensive line over and over and over again, we've seen them struggle, man. We've seen them struggle so much. So if that's the case, then yeah, I'm all about mix and match, draw names in a hat if you have to. I think there's only one position on this entire offensive line that I look at. I'm like, no one's touching that. Josiah Thompson's got left tackle down, right? Like that. He is going to go into year 2, lock down that position without question. But everywhere else, yeah, man, make that an iron sharpens iron situation. Make that a situation where you were trying to find the right fit of guys. And I tell you what, going into a game where he goes, or going into the second scrimmage, and he's a guy that goes in there, and obviously I think is a lot of players are excited about. A former 4-star from that kind of high school that has that kind of pedigree. And again, that kind of size. One of the things, and I heard Pat DeMarco talk about this the other day on Twitter, I think it's probably from his show, him and Stephen Garcia's podcast, which is great. Go check it out. But we brought this up on a show way early in the offseason, and you talk about the size, just the sheer size of the offensive line you're going to have. I know how bad they've been the past 2 years, but one thing that has improved at the very least, the size of this offensive line, it doesn't get, I don't think anyone shorter than 6'4", maybe the center is, I don't know. But for the most part, the average height and average size across the board, I think it was around 6'5", 320, 317 or something like that. I'll have to do the math on it. But by all means, that's 6'5", 320 across the board as an average. That's an NFL-sized offensive line. That is a big boy. We are here to move people around offensive line. Tree Batley fits that a little bit more than Casey Henry. And that doesn't mean that Casey Henry won't play, because when you have a guy with that kind of experience, you would have to assume he probably will. But I love it. I love it. The last one is this, and I bring this up because we heard Matthew Fuller last week, his name kind of pop up. You heard Doring talk about how he liked the running backs a lot better than people are willing to give him credit for. But from this Saturday scrimmage specifically, one of the guys you heard that kind of popped a little bit was Isaiah Agustave. I think that's correct. I don't know. I've got to get the sheets and make sure I know the names for the season. You guys are going to get tired of it. I know I am. But the kid from Colorado, former 4-star recruit out of Florida, goes to Colorado, comes in. He led them in rushing a season ago. Didn't get a ton of carries because they threw the ball 1,000 times a game. But that's a kid that I think that what you're inching closer to, and maybe we just get great news in the next couple of days. I don't know. But what you're inching closer to is that Russell Faison is not going to be eligible for this season. Or maybe it's something, at least for the start of it. I shouldn't say for this season, for the start of it. I just think it's going to end up being like that kid at UNC, and they're going to end up, the NCAA is going to drag their feet and be the worst like they always are, and then we'll figure it out when we get there. But in that situation, it feels like you're going to have a little bit more running back by committee. And that's fine. We've seen South Carolina do fine with that. I wish that they had the guy, and maybe Isaiah is that guy. Maybe Jordan Howell. Maybe somebody else. Maybe Matthew Fuller. I don't know. But it does feel very much like the fact that you're going into a season where you've got 3 guys that everyone's counted out, and they are talented, way more talented than people are willing to give them credit for, or willing to do the research and watch the tape and learn so they know that. It's just, they're not going to be as good there. I mean, listen, and maybe there will be a drop-off in a running back by committee versus having a guy like Rocket Sanders last year. Rocket Sanders, by the way, had another great day yesterday, scoring a touchdown in the preseason for the NFL. It's his second one of the preseason and second in as many games as well. But maybe there will be a drop-off. I don't know. I will tell you this. I think you've got three guys that are very hungry, and they kind of epitomize the whole identity of this program too, which is just like constantly dismissed, constantly discounted, and play with a chip on their shoulder. And I love that. So the good news, like I said this over and over, you don't want Sellers to have to be the only focal point of the run game. I also feel like you don't feel uncomfortable with him being that for you in the run game. He's going to get a lot of carries. He is going to get a lot of carries. He is at 6'3", 240. He is a big enough body to where he can take some punishment and keep going. Now, you don't want to get him hurt. You don't want to run him, like 1,000 times a game or anything like that. But you also feel good about the fact that, yeah, you know what? Like we've got a guy that can be a little bit of a bell cow in that situation. And we've got enough dudes at the running back position also where it's like, yeah, we can rotate bodies, keep legs fresh, and figure out a system where maybe we don't need the one guy who is going to go run for 1,100 yards. Maybe we got three that are going to go run for 13. You know what I mean? Or including Sellers, even more than that. So I look at that, and I love the idea. I tell you what I love more than anything, guys. I tell you what I love more than anything. Maybe I should love with this. I don't know who's going to be the first running back that trots out there on August 31st against Virginia Tech. I do not know who that's going to be. But I also like the fact that through two scrimmages so far, the intel and the chatter that we've heard and the comments we've heard back from like the coaching staff and people that are around it and seeing it happen live, the reaction that we've had, two times now you've gotten a running back's name that has been mentioned that had a good day. Not prompted, just, oh, you know, had a good day, this guy. And at the very least, you're not hearing stuff that's, oh, man, that's a big hole we got to fill. Man, I don't know what they're going to do at running back. It is much more, you know what? We got some dudes that are actually been like pleasant surprises and had really good days, unprompted, from the coaching staff. When we come back, we're going to talk real quick about a massive, massive prospect that I'm very excited about who announces this Friday, 5-star interior offensive lineman Darius Gray. He is announcing this Friday. I talked to some people close to LSU. It's been long been considered a South Carolina and LSU battle back and forth. So we talk about that and what the latest is there. You're not going to want to miss it, I promise you. Before we do that, I do want to give a quick shout out, very, very quickly, about our friends at Game Time. You heard me talk about it at the top of the show. I tell you what, if you've ever decided last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family, maybe it's game day, I don't know, you suddenly realize, oh, man, you know what? I want to be in the stand. I want to be inside there. I want to see this firsthand. This is going to be a great day. I want to be a part of it. Well, there's no one better to help you get your foot in the door and go see that game than Game Time. I tell you what, it's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes all of that possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, all capital letters, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. When we come back, we talk about Darius Gray and the latest intel we have on the 5-star. Locked On Gamecocks continues right after this. All right, let's close out the show with some intel we got from a buddy, Bryce Kuhn. He is a reporter for LSU on On3. Him and I talked earlier today specifically about Darius Gray. He put out an article about where LSU stands, how he feels about it. And I want to talk to you about what he said specifically about landing Gray, because I think it's this has been something for South Carolina fans, especially for quite some time. I've been keeping an eye on, wanting to hear the latest on, very excited about all that kind of stuff. I tell you what, LSU, I feels like they're just now talking about it. You haven't heard a ton from this camp about him. And part of that's because, they got Solomon Thomas last year as a former 5-star. They got Carius Kern last year. They just got another 5-star. He played offensive line. I think at times he was also going to play defensive line for them out of the lab school. I should know his name off the top of my head because I had to make a bazillion graphics about it. But Darius Gray is a 5-star interior offensive lineman, okay? You don't see that as much as tackles for sure, but it's a kid out of Richmond, Virginia, that same little area. It's been a pretty fertile recruiting ground. And this is what was told to me. I said, listen, what do you have on Darius Gray? He said, sorry, I've been working on several pieces for him. LSU is right there, but I'd give South Carolina the lead. I said, I just feel like, especially, this is just me, this is just all speculation, but after watching LSU's offensive line in camp and watching how much they've struggled like initially, and also knowing that they went out into the portal and got a bunch of guys. I don't know how many were coming back. Braylon Moore is the only guy that's like locked down a spot to play center, a former Virginia Tech guy. And one of the things that they brought up to me, or one of the things that stood out to me, at least from watching it, maybe it doesn't look like Kim Jong-un with my haircut. I don't know. That's not that bad. Maybe I overreacted. You guys know me well enough to know right now. I do that a lot. Anyway, one of the things they said was, or one of the things I've watched is this offensive line struggle a ton. And I get this weird feeling that especially after watching this struggle, it just feels like LSU is going to have to come in and throw some money at Darius Gray. And I'm not saying that it's going to be more than what South Carolina is. I think it will be. But I get the feeling that if they throw out a lot more money, it's going to be because they're trying to make up ground that they don't have that South Carolina does. Does that make sense? Like I think they're going to have to pay him more money to make up the ground that they're currently behind on in regards to Darius Gray. And that doesn't mean that they have offered less. It doesn't mean they haven't made the deal as sweet, or they didn't offer playing time. I don't know. What it means is I think South Carolina's ahead. I think they have been for a while. And I think that they also are sitting in a situation where if he can't change his mind off of the pitch, hey, this is what we have, this is what we offer as a program, this is our culture, do you want to come play for us? Then as you've seen in the NIL era, a lot of times it's like, all right, well, if you're not as convinced, what if we throw a couple $100,000 more your way? And the deal that I have heard when I brought that up was, I think that LSU is going, this is a direct quote, I think LSU is going to have to throw out more money to make up for the distance from home. And he is from Richmond, Virginia. You look at that distance between Richmond to Columbia, it's about 372 miles, about a 5.5-hour drive. The distance from there to Baton Rouge is 1,058. That is roughly 700 miles further to travel. If you're driving, that's a crazy move if you are, that's over 15 hours in the car versus a 5-hour drive down the East Coast through some beautiful Appalachian hills. Or the coast, I don't know. Go down 95, pop up to Charleston, make a weekend out of it. I don't know. But either way, whichever way you're driving, it's about 10 hours closer for them to go to Columbia than Baton Rouge. I have long had the feeling that South Carolina has had the lead for him. We've been told that. It feels like they have made the pitch to him, and I think he is a guy that has bought into the culture more so than the cash. And there's a lot of things can happen this week. We've seen it happen multiple times in South Carolina, this recruiting class alone, where you feel really good about a guy, PJ Dean. There's been a lot of others. You feel really good about a guy, and in the last minute, somebody comes in and outbids you. I don't know if that's going to happen, and I'm not going to speculate on that. But what I will tell you is, as of today, even the LSU camp feels like South Carolina leads for him. So that is all for today's episode. We'll be back on Monday to kick off our last week, big interview week. We're very fired up about it, but our last week before game week to talk about the upcoming season. So appreciate you guys as always. Hope you have a great rest of your Sunday evening or Monday morning whenever you're listening to this. And until next time, go Cox.